This video is going to look at Hebrew adjectives from a secondary perspective, building on our last lesson. Here we are going to look at the difference between predicate and attributive adjectives. If you're using our textbook, this goes along with Hackett, Chapter 7, the second section. First of all, what's the difference between an attributive adjective and a predicate adjective? It'll be easiest to start with some English examples. Attributive adjectives are things like a good horse, the clever child, a cold day. I find it most helpful to think of these as adjectives which pick out a noun. You'll notice there are ellipsis points. We haven't said anything about this noun yet. We've picked out which horse we want to talk about, which child we want to say something about. By contrast, predicate adjectives say something about a noun. A horse is good. By providing a predicate, they give us a complete sentence. The child is clever. And finally, let's give us an example that includes one of each type of adjective. The clever child is tall. You can see in this sentence, clever is an attributive adjective because it picks out a certain child. Imagine there were 6 children in front of us, and I said, the clever child. Now you're attending to a specific child, and then we use another adjective, a predicate adjective, to say something about that child. The clever child is tall, but the other children are not. So far, so good. Time to get into some examples of how these differ in Hebrew. First of all, let me note that building on our prior lesson, the rules we learned there are still applicable. Adjectives must agree with their nouns in their gender and in their number. And the same endings are going to be used. So we aren't going to have any difference in the endings for attributive and predicate adjectives. We'll keep this chart up to one side for help. And now we'll look at some of these different sentences that we just gave, and we'll put them into Hebrew. A good horse versus a horse is good. In Hebrew, the way you designate an attributive adjective is that the adjective will come after its noun. Sus means horse, tov means good. By putting the adjective after the noun, the word order is critical here, you show that this is an attribute. It's an attributive adjective. A good horse, ... We haven't said anything about the horse yet. By contrast, we simply reverse this to say a horse is good, tov is a sus. You will notice that there is nothing in the Hebrew that corresponds to is. Hebrew does have a verb to be, and we will use it in some circumstances. But in other circumstances, it isn't necessary to write it. You can make a complete sentence simply by putting the adjective first. Tov is a sus. Good is a horse. Let's give another example. Now let's look at some examples with the plural. The exact same principles will apply. Good horses will be susim tovim. Susim is the plural for horses, and the adjective tov follows it. And because susim is plural, we have to use the plural form of tov, tovim. If we want to say horses are good, we'll put the noun second, and we'll put the adjective first. Tovim, good, are susim. I want to introduce something new here by using the definite article, the word the. We won't learn the Hebrew for the definite article until chapter 8. But I'm going to half introduce it right now because usually, when we want to distinguish in Hebrew between an attributive adjective and a predicate adjective, we do it by using the definite article, the word the. And it makes it so much easier to see what's going on. So the word the in Hebrew is basically just the letter hey with a patak, ha. It's also the dagesh in the next letter, but for now, just what is in green, ha. So we want to say the good horse. The horse, the good one. The adjective still follows the noun. But what will really catch your eye is that when we want an attributive adjective, both the noun and the adjective will have the article. They will agree in definiteness. They're both specific. The horse, not any old horse. The good one, not any other one. By contrast, if we want to say the horse is good, we're still going to start with our adjective. Good is the horse. We still put the predicate adjective first, and you will see that it does not have the definite article. It doesn't have the word the. And to me, this makes it so easy to spot the horse, the good one, versus good is the horse. Let's do some other examples with the, and we'll just use a different adjective now. The big horse. In Hebrew, that will be hasus, the horse, hagadol, the big one. If we want to say the horse is big, we will say gadol is hasus. Big is the horse. For just a minute, if we think about this phrase, the big horse, we've been living with these ellipsis points for a while every time we had an attributive adjective. That is, we've picked out a horse, the big one, but we haven't said anything about it. We could say something about it by adding a predicate adjective, right? In English, we could say, the big horse is good. How could we combine the rules we've learned so far to say that in Hebrew? Well, we've already got the horse, the big one. What do we do for predicate adjectives? We put them before their noun, and they don't have the word the. There's our word tov, and this is a complete sentence in Hebrew. Good is the horse. Which one? The big one. In normal English, the big horse is tov, is good. Finally, I want to give sort of a special example of predicate adjectives that are featured in chapter 7. And that is, what will happen if instead of trying to give an adjective to go with a noun like horse or cow or child, what if we want to use a pronoun like he or she or they? If we want to say he is big, the basic rules of predicate adjectives will still apply. We put the adjective first, and then we just put the word for he. And just like it's one word in English, it's just one word in Hebrew, hu. So gadol hu means big is he. He is big. If we want to say she is big, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put the adjective first. But be careful now. We can't just use gadol, can we? Because gadol is masculine. It's like tov. We need the form of gadol that will be feminine to agree with a feminine pronoun, she. So we're going to have gadolah, and then the pronoun he, which means she. Gadolah, he. She is big. Let's do this with a plural. They are good. We'll change our adjective to good. The word for they in Hebrew is haim. And what form of good do we want? It's plural now, so we want tovim. Tovim haim. They are good. And finally, Hebrew has a distinctive form for they, feminine. So you could be referring to feminine nouns. The lands are good. The word land in Hebrew is feminine. They are good. The word for they is hain. And now what form of good do we want to agree with something feminine and plural? We want tovot. We want the ot ending. And tovot hain means they are good. So you can see now we've taken what we learned at first with the different forms adjectives can take, and we've built upon it. We're still making adjectives agree with their noun or their pronoun in whether they're singular or plural and whether they're masculine or feminine. But now we've made a distinction between attributive adjectives, which will follow their noun, and predicate adjectives, which will come before their noun and which will form a complete sentence. Tov ma'od.